I think you might be able to hear the 4th of July fireworks going off right now, and it's a bit, let's say, distracting for me, but I'm gonna do this video anyway. And as you know, the topic of this video is this insane obsession that so many people have with biological determinism. You know, it's the whole idea that all human behavior is genetically encoded, which, from my understanding, is not entirely true. There are people talking about a Republican gene, or possibly an American Idol gene, or even a Game of Thrones gene. And from my perspective, that doesn't make sense. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but what I do know is, what little I do know, is that environment is probably more of a factor than genetics, even though genetics does play an important role. Let's see. One thing I've come to note, or have heard about anyway, is that some of the results of the Human Genome Project, where before the project was completed, a lot of people assumed that the human genome consisted of hundreds of thousands of genes. I think some even claim millions of genes. But when the project was completed, if I remember correctly, the estimated number of genes in the human genome was somewhere between 25 and 35,000, something like that. Not much. In fact, if I remember correctly, there are even microorganisms that have a more complex genetic code than we have. Yeah, that's how it works. What I'm getting at is if all human behavior were genetically encoded, then chances are the human genome will be way more complicated than it is. Let's see, what else did I not say? Another thing about biological determinism is that let me go with these notes again. Okay, anyway, back to work. Another thing about the problem I have with biological determinism is that if it were true, or it is true to a certain extent, but let's say if it was such an overwhelming factor, we'd still be living in caves, because, as you probably know, the human brain has remained virtually unchanged for thousands of years. And if the human brain has remained unchanged for thousands of years, then wouldn't that mean that our behavior will remain the same for thousands of years? But that's not the case. And the main reason why that's not the case is because of technology. The human brain may be virtually the same as it was 10,000 years ago, but as you know, technology is significantly different from what it was 10,000 years ago. And with that being the case, I would like to note the fact that we need to change our behavior, because you don't want people with caveman mentality to have access to nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons, because that sort of mentality is going to end up getting us to use those deadly weapons and end up destroying the earth. And if you're like me, you don't want the earth destroyed, especially when you got all this stuff to do. One thing I've noticed about this biological determinism thing is that it seems to be promoted by people who don't want the world to change. So, or at least a lot of people support the idea because they don't want the world to change. If all human behavior is genetically encoded, then that means that you can't change human behavior, therefore you can't change the world. But history has shown that you can change the world. 10,000 years ago, technology was significantly less developed than it is now. that's a sign of the world changing. And there are many other examples of the world changing, and yet these people are so convinced you can't change the world, even though history shows that you can change the world. More to the point, or let's say more realistically speaking, change is an unavoidable consequence of existence. I repeat, change is an unavoidable consequence of existence. So you can believe that you can't change the world all you want, but change is going to happen one way or another. And also, I want to bring up the reality that very few people will be persuaded by my assertions here. I mean, it's been my experience that people barely ever listen to me anyway. And I suck at persuasion. In fact, I couldn't persuade Rush Limbaugh to vote Republican. But whatever the case, I'm making these videos and such and expressing my viewpoints anyway, because there might be a remote chance that some change might happen, or let's just say I could be a contributing factor to change. And I think I'm going to stop right here. Wish I could say more. I should say more about this particular topic, but I can't think of anything else. So see you later, Ralph Nader.